Hello and welcome, I'm your Code Monkey. In this lecture, we're going to begin setting up our project and installing all the packages. Okay, so let's begin setting up everything. Now, if you want to follow the course as you go along, normally you are supposed to follow along exactly as I do things. However, for these first few lectures, where we are setting up everything, it is actually simpler if you just watch these lectures and then later on download the project files. That way there are no issues with mismatched versions or anything like that. So just watch all the lectures in this section and then download the project files. That one contains the entire project. Then you just unzip that file, add it on Unity Hub, open it, and you'll have everything exactly the same as I have. Like I said, this avoids any issues with version mismatches, either Unity version or individual package versions. So if you want to follow along, definitely wait a bit and then download that. But over here in this video and in these following lectures, I will show you the whole setup that I did in order to create that project. So first of all, here I am in Unity Hub. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project. For the editor version, I'm going to choose Unity 6. Then for the template, dots can actually work with either URP or AGRP. Let's go with URP because it runs on everything. Then for the project name, let's give it some name like dots RTS course. Then select the location, the organization. In this case, we don't need to connect Unity Cloud, and that's really it. Okay, so let's create. Alright, so here is our empty Unity project. Now let's go ahead and first of all get rid of the URP README files since we don't really need those. So let's go ahead and just remove. Okay, now let's go ahead and install all the packages that we're going to need. So let's go up into Window, open up the package manager. Then here, let's go inside the Unity registry and let's see. So the first one is we want to install the entities package. So let's scroll down. Yep, there it is, the entities package. This is the main dots package that contains ECS, the entity component system. And over here, we can also look at the dependencies. So we can see this will already install a bunch of these ones. It will automatically install burst. That's the burst compiler. It will also automatically install collections. This one contains a bunch of native collections like native arrays, native lists, and so on. And it will also install the mathematics library. This is the one that is burst capable, which is super fast. Okay, so let's go ahead and install the entities package. Okay, all of those are installed. Next, since we're going to render our entities, we also need to install over here the entities graphics. If we don't have this package, then we can't actually render entities. We can't see those visuals. So if we want to do that, which we do, then let's go ahead and install this one. Okay, that one's done as well. And since in our game we're going to be using dots physics, let's scroll down and find over here the Unity physics. This is Unity's physics system that is built on top of ECS. So let's also go ahead and install this one. Okay, that's it. And finally, let's just go all the way up here. And let's also install the 2D sprite package. This basically helps us being able to edit a bunch of sprites as we import them, so we can then use them in the UI and so on. So let's go ahead and just install this. Okay, that's it. So here, if we look in the project, here in the project, all of these packages are installed. So it's really the default ones plus the ones that we just installed. Again, like I said, part of the reason why I told you to wait and then download the exact project files is so you get exactly these same package versions. That way there's no confusion about any differences. If you download the project, you will have exactly this setup. Okay, so that's it. All our packages are installed. Let's close them. Now let's actually follow the setup that Unity recommends. In terms of IDE, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Community. That's the free version. I'm going to talk about that setup in a future lecture. Now technically you can use whatever IDE you want, but it has to support source generation. If you look over here inside the documentation for the entities package, over here we do see a section for IDE support, and over here it says how this uses the Roslyn source generators. So because of this, it needs to be using an IDE that is compatible with source generator. So in my case, like I said, I'm going to be using Visual Studio, the community version, but if you want, you can also use Rider and that should work as well. Now, interestingly, there's no mention over here of Visual Studio Code, so I don't know if that one is specifically not supported. Maybe it is, maybe this one refers to both the Visual Studio proper and Visual Studio Code, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Community. So the next important setting is what it says here on domain reload setting. For that, here in Unity, let's go into Edit. Then let's scroll down into Project Settings. Then on the left side here, let's go into the Editor tab. And now we can scroll down until we find it. Here it is, the Enter Play Mode settings. And over here, when entering play mode, by default, it is on this one, reload domain and scene. And what the docs recommend is do not reload domain or scene. So that's it. Now, like it says here, this actually has one very important implication. Basically, by disabling domain reloading, any static field or any static events, any static data you have will not be reset between runs. Meaning if you have some kind of static field for an int for some kind of player score, and the player's playing the game and they got a score of 50, then you stop playing and you start playing again. If you do that, when you start playing, it will remain with that 50. Whereas if you have domain reload enabled, it would automatically reset that, and when you replay, it would once again reset to 0. So basically, if you're used to using lots of statics and assuming they reset every time you stop playing, that will no longer happen with domain reload disabled. So always keep that in mind. Okay, so with that, our super basic setup is done. Our project is pretty much ready to use dots. Now let's go on to the next lecture and set up our Unity layout.